There's a moment in life when everything you thought you knew about control falls apart. You lose a job. A relationship ends. A plan you've worked on for years suddenly collapses. And in that chaos, you ask yourself, how do I stay calm when the world is on fire? That question led me to Stoic philosophy, and honestly, it changed everything for me. When most people hear Stoicism, they imagine cold detachment or people suppressing emotions. But the truth is, Stoicism is the complete opposite. It's not about feeling less, it's about feeling wisely. It's about mastering your reactions so you can move through life with strength, clarity, and peace. 3 Stoic lessons completely reshaped the way I live. They didn't just give me new ideas, they gave me a new way of being. The first lesson: you can't control events, only your response to them. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When I first heard that, it sounded cliché, but then I started to really apply it. Every time something went wrong, someone criticized me, a plan failed, or I got bad news, I noticed how quickly I'd spiral into frustration. I'd think, why is this happening to me? But Stoicism taught me to flip that question into, what can I control right now? Because in almost every situation, the answer is the same: my thoughts, my choices, my attitude. That's it. Everything else is just noise. When you start living like that, something powerful happens. You stop being a victim of circumstance. You stop letting life drag you around like a leaf in the wind. You realize that your peace is your responsibility. Not your boss's, not your partner's, not the government's, yours. One day, I remember standing in a long line at the airport. Everyone was sighing, complaining, and checking their watches. And for a second, I felt the same irritation bubbling up. Then I caught myself. I thought, can I control the line? No. Can I control how I stand here? Yes. So I relaxed my shoulders, took a breath, and smiled at the person in front of me. That one decision turned waiting into peace. That's the power of Stoicism. It gives you back ownership of your inner state. The second lesson that changed me: you suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca wrote that centuries ago, but it feels like he was talking directly about the modern world. How much of your anxiety comes from things that haven't even happened? We live in our heads so much that we end up fighting imaginary battles. For me, this hit hard. I used to spend days worrying about what people thought of me, how projects might fail, and how future problems could unfold. 90% of the time, those fears never became real. I was living in mental chaos. I had built myself. The Stoics called this the art of distinguishing between what is and what might be. The present moment is usually simple. It's our thoughts that make it complicated. So when I'd catch myself spiraling into what-ifs, I'd pause and ask, is this real right now? Or is this a story I'm telling myself? That question alone has saved me from countless hours of unnecessary worry. Imagine if you could remove all that imagined suffering. How much lighter would you feel? Most of our stress doesn't come from reality, but from our resistance to it. Stoicism teaches you to meet life as it is, not as you wish it would be. I remember one night, lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying a mistake I made at work. I couldn't stop thinking about what my boss might say. Then I remembered Seneca's words: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. I took a deep breath, thought, right now, in this moment, I'm just lying in bed. The rest is a story. And slowly, the fear dissolved. That's what Stoicism does. It brings you back to the truth of the present moment. The third lesson, and maybe the most profound one: memento mori, remember that you will die. At first, this idea sounds dark, even morbid. Why would anyone want to think about death? But for the Stoics, it wasn't about fear, it was about clarity. They saw death as the ultimate teacher. When you really remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop arguing about things that don't matter. You stop delaying the things that do. Memento mori doesn't make life sad. It makes it sacred. I started using this idea in small ways. Every morning, I'd remind myself, I might not have this day again. Not in a depressing way, but as a spark to live fully. When you carry that awareness, you start noticing life's details again. The sound of rain, the way light hits a wall, the way someone's laughter makes you feel. You stop scrolling aimlessly, and you start paying attention. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That line changed how I spend my time. It reminded me that I don't have endless tomorrows. None of us does. Death isn't the opposite of life. It's what gives life its shape. If you lived forever, nothing would feel urgent, nothing would matter. But because it ends, everything matters. When I started to really absorb that, my priorities shifted. I began letting go of grudges faster. I started speaking the truth more often. I became more grateful for the smallest things. Every day started to feel like borrowed time, and that made it beautiful. When you remember death, you remember life. You realize how fragile everything is, and yet how precious. The morning coffee, the sound of the wind, the voice of someone you love, none of it is guaranteed. And when you stop taking it for granted, you start living differently. Memento mori became more than a phrase for me. It became a quiet compass. Whenever I found myself complaining, hesitating, or avoiding something important, I'd remind myself, one day, I won't have the chance to do this. Suddenly, sending that message, forgiving that person, or taking that leap didn't feel so scary. It felt necessary. Stoicism doesn't numb you, it wakes you up. It strips away the illusions that make you waste your time. It shows you what's real and what's worth caring about. And in a world full of distractions, that's revolutionary. These 3 lessons: control what you can, don't suffer imaginary pain, and remember death, became the foundation for how I live my life. But what surprised me most was how practical they are. Stoicism isn't just philosophy for scholars. It's a manual for living. Whenever something goes wrong now, I don't panic the way I used to. I try to zoom out to see the bigger picture. I ask, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that small question instantly brings perspective. Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." The older I get, the truer that feels. So much of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from the stories we attach to what happens. Stoicism helps you rewrite those stories, not to escape life, but to live it better. There's a kind of quiet power that comes from inner stability. When people lose their temper, you stay calm. When life surprises you, you adapt. When the world feels chaotic, you still find peace inside. That doesn't make you emotionless, it makes you free. I remember reading about Marcus Aurelius writing his meditations while leading a war, losing friends, and facing betrayal. Yet his words radiate peace, not bitterness. He never blamed life for being difficult. He simply accepted it as part of the human experience. That mindset is something modern culture rarely teaches. We're told to chase comfort, success, approval, but Stoicism teaches something deeper: to find serenity in the chaos, not to wait for it to disappear. And honestly, that's the hardest part, because the world around us celebrates reactivity. It rewards outrage, comparison, and endless distraction. The Stoic path is different. It's quiet, patient, and deeply self-aware. It's about mastering yourself instead of trying to master everything else. When I started practicing Stoicism, I expected to feel calmer. What I didn't expect was how much it would sharpen my sense of gratitude. When you stop expecting life to go your way, everything becomes a gift. A traffic jam becomes time to think. A challenge becomes training. A mistake becomes a lesson. You stop labeling moments as good or bad and start seeing them as just life. There's freedom in that. The kind of freedom no one can give or take away. I think that's why Stoic philosophy still resonates thousands of years later. It doesn't depend on culture, religion, or status. It speaks to something universal in us. The desire to live with purpose, to stay calm amid storms, and to find meaning in a world that often feels uncertain. Sometimes, when I face a difficult day, I imagine what the Stoics would say. Marcus would remind me that everything is temporary. Seneca would tell me to focus on what I can control. Epictetus would say that peace begins the moment you stop wishing things were different. Those three voices have become like inner companions, whispering through the noise of modern life. And the more I practice their wisdom, the more I realize that Stoicism isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware. It's not about having no emotions. It's about not being ruled by them. It's not about escaping pain. It's about learning from it. There's a quiet dignity in living this way. You stop chasing endless external validation and start building something stronger inside yourself. A stillness that doesn't depend on outcomes. A peace that can't be shaken. So if you're searching for clarity, if you're tired of being tossed around by emotion, or if you simply want to feel grounded in an unstable world, start with these 3 lessons. Practice them daily. Reflect on them deeply. Because Stoicism isn't something you learn once. It's something you live moment by moment. Remember, control what you can, release what you can't, and meet life with calm acceptance. Don't waste your energy fighting the wind. Learn to sail with it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." That single line sums up Stoicism better than anything else. When your thoughts are disciplined, your emotions become balanced, and your actions become meaningful. And when that happens, your entire life transforms. So I'll leave you with a question. Which of these 3 Stoic lessons do you think you need most right now? Controlling your reactions, freeing yourself from imagined suffering, or remembering the brevity of life? Share your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep reflections on philosophy, inner peace, and self-mastery. Remember, wisdom isn't something you find, it's something you practice. Every single day,